Hey guys, Dan here with Dan Reviews It, Dan Does Disney, and Tim is our guest today. Hello again, Tim.
Hi, everybody.
Good to see you over the old Zoom box. And you actually have the movie in question today.
Yep. We are reviewing So Dear to My Heart.
Yes, the 1948 classic, I guess, unheard of by many, but we'll learn all
Yep.
about it today.
So much a classic. It's not on Disney Plus.
Yes, it's not on Disney Plus, so you had to come on over and grab it. But that was fine because you had to grab Song of the South anyway.
Yeah.
So that's fine. But this is an interesting one to talk about because usually, okay, so with Dan Does Disney, I give the intro, I talk about how much money it made, I talk about the background of it. But typically, my information doesn't go any further than I'll look up a bunch of stuff on Wiki, I'll look up IMDb info, but there's shockingly little to be found about this movie on regular routes. So I had to sort of dive a little bit deeper, go into some Disney fan sites and go outside of the box a little bit for this one, which is a little bit odd. We'll talk at the end, like we always do, about the home media presence of this movie, but this is actually the first full-length movie they ever showed on the Disney Channel when it premiered in April of 1983. It was also the first Disney film featuring live actors to be on the Disneyland TV show on ABC. So it's got a history of being seen, for early Disney things. So I don't know what is holding it back really from Disney Plus. It doesn't have the racial things of Song of the South.
No.
So it's a bit of a mystery, but let's talk about the background first, and then as usual, Tim will kind of tell us the plot synopsis, and then we'll do the review. But this came out in 1948. It was made for $1.5 million and did pretty well at the box office. It earned almost $2.8 million, and then they re-released it in 1964. It earned another $1.5 million there. So it definitely more than made the money back for Walt. At this point in time, I mean, Walt is kind of finished with the package films. We did have Ichabod and Mr. Toad after this, but for the most part, he was back focusing on, higher quality full-length features, I guess. So, the audience was responding to that. Did you see that we had another Oscar awarded, Tim?
Yeah.
We talked the other day about Uncle Remus and James Baskett for his portrayal getting an honorary Oscar. The kid in this, Bobby Driscoll, who we saw in Song of the South, we saw in the Pecos Bill segment.
Pecos Bill segment from that's Melody Time.
From Melody Time. So he was apparently in another movie this same year for RKO, who distributed all of the Disney movies, called The Window. So I'm a little intrigued about that because I don't know. I kind of like this kid. I mean, we've seen him several times over the last few weeks. He's pretty decent actor for a little kid.
He's a decent actor for his age. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially for one that we've never really heard of in 2020.
No.
It's not famous. So I don't know. I might check out The Window now.
Yeah.
But anyway,
he got a juvenile Oscar award? I didn't even know they gave those out.
Shirley Temple got the very first one back in, I guess, the 30s, whenever Shirley Temple was real little. So it's part of the whole honorary Oscar portion. So it's basically what James Baskett, I guess, won, except a junior version of it. And they did it a few times. I think Haley Mills got one as well through Disney when she first started, in the early 60s.
Okay.
The Parent Trap and stuff. So it's every few years. It's not one that they do every single year, but every so often they'll do a juvenile Oscar. I don't think they've done it in the last 40 or 50 years. I mean, it's been a long time, but
I know, because you have young Oscar nominees now.
Yeah, I mean, now you've got Anna Paquin and Janae Wallace, True Grit Girl, Haley Steinfeld.
Yeah, so, and Jacob Tremblay didn't get nominated, but he probably should have got nominated for Room.
He should have got nominated for him. Yeah, I guess ever since maybe Tatum O'Neal won for Paper Moon, I guess they were like, well, I guess we don't need juvenile Oscars anymore. Let's just give them all to everyone.
Yeah.
Because I feel like she got a real Oscar, right? Tatum O'Neal?
Yeah,
I think so. All right. So anyway, this is based on a 1943 book that Tim will probably tell us a little bit about, called Midnight in Jeremiah. Interestingly enough, after the movie came out, they sort of redid the book and made it more like the movie, and then retitled it and everything. I don't know if you could even get the original at that point. But Walt wanted to really do this because he felt that the story kind of mirrored what him and his brother Roy went through growing up in Missouri. This takes place in Indiana, but still kind of similar. He was hoping for it to be the first all live action Disney film, and RKO Pictures said, no, thank you. And we talked about this a little bit with Song of the South too, that they sort of were contracted to do animation only. But in this case, he really was trying to fight for it. But they said, well, you know what? Why don't you put some animation still in it? The Disney name goes with animation. So once he sort of realized that the owl could be like this teacher of the lessons of the movie, and then some of the other storybook elements that Tim will tell us about, Disney said, okay, like I can definitely make this work. And about 15% of the film does feature animation. Some other notes about the acting. This is the final film for Harry Carey, who I knew as the sportscaster, but this is a different Harry Carey. And he starred as the vice president in Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. So I did kind of know him from that. And then the director, Harold Schuster, this is back, of course, in the old studio days where you signed contracts with studios. He was on loan from 20th Century Fox because Walt really, really wanted him to do this because he loved My Friend Flicka so much, which Schuster did. Ironic now that, Disney owns Fox anyway, but back then you had to kind of get people to sort of not, push their contract, but allow the studio to release them for a movie here or there. So the extras are all real people. There were close to 500 extras, and they showed up every single day on the set, and they wore all their own clothes. They all mainly came from family farms, and so they all kind of had their own duds that were not provided to them by the studio, but they showed up every single day to be in the background. And most of this was filmed on location, except for some of the interior shots. But they went to farms, orchards, vineyards to get all these really cool shots. And to make the grass and stuff pop on the screen and the fields, they had 27 men nightly washing the grass and soil so that it would pop on screen. And I thought this was kind of cool too, in a nice twist of some animal rights activism, I guess. Some of the days they filmed were over 100 degrees, and Walt was kind of like, okay, well, whatever, we're still got to film. But they would pump cool air into the stalls and stuff where the animals were, so at least the animals weren't overheating, whereas the people kind of were wearing those big, long, clothing and frocks and stuff. So that's really all I have about the background of this movie. So Tim's going to take it away and tell us the plot synopsis, and then we'll get into the review portion.
Okay. Like Dan said, it's based on the book Midnight in Jeremiah by Sterling North, and it's set in Indiana in 1903. And it tells the story of Jeremiah Kincaid, played by Bobby Driscoll, and his dream of raising a black wool sheep, or a ram, I guess it's a ram, to become a blue ribbon winning a winner at the country fair, or county fair. County fair?
There, yep. I know it well. I did 4-H back in my youth. What a treat.
To even get to the fair, Jeremiah and his lamb, named Danny, must overcome obstacles and gain the approval of his tough yet loving grandma, played by Bella Bondi, in his
Bondi or something. Yeah, I never heard of that.
So in his corner, he has his uncle Hiram, played by Burl Ives, and his cousin Tildy, played by Luana Patton, who we've seen in 3 movies so far, or 4 movies so far. This is the 4th movie we've seen her in.
Wait, what was she in without Bobby Driscoll?
She was in the ventriloquist dummies.
She was the girl, right, that Edgar Bergen was talking to.
Yeah.
That's right.
So he has those 2 in his corner, but only if Danny would stay out of trouble, things would go a lot smoother. There are 3 animated sections, and they take on the theme of taking place in the pages of Jeremiah's scrapbook, where the wise old owl gives him advice and sometimes inspiration. And that's the basic plot synopsis. The animation, it starts off with the opening with kind of these panning scenes through the scrapbook with animation. I think that's probably the best detailed animation they have throughout it. I was a little confused by it with the opening, with the song over top of it. I was like, why are they doing this pan through a couple pages of the scrapbook? I thought it was a good opening, and then they did a couple more pages, and I was a little confused. But then it kind of made sense once they did more of them from the pages of the scrapbook. It made sense, and I felt like that was a good theme to kind of connect them all, to make them one kind of like story of the 3 animated sections.
Walt was real big into the storybook opening and like that whole motif. I mean, we've seen that in a lot of these movies so far.
Yes.
So it makes sense that if RKO is going to make him animate some sequences, he may as well sort of go back to that well again, I suppose.
And I think he kind of wants, like with Song of the South and this one, I think he was kind of like on the pages, and even in Ichabod Crane, like I felt like he was more geared to having a more like the link of them kind of make more sense, opposed to like some of the other ones where there was like no theme to them or anything like that.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and especially since the owl later, comes out of a similar, thing. It makes sense that he sort of be the Jiminy Cricket, if you will, of this.
So basically, Jeremiah has these little cards that has this wise old owl that has different inspirational sayings, and he would put them in his scrapbook that he has. But then the owl later comes to life, and there are 3 segments, and they sing 3 different songs. The first one is it's What You Do With What You Got, and then the next one is Stick It to Ibbity, and then the last one is just County Fair. The first one, I was actually surprised because we got a little bit more religious content in it. It talked about David and Goliath and the walls of Jericho, but then it made sense in like the 3rd act when religious themes became a lot more prevalent than the rest of the movie.
And we talked about this recently with, I guess it was the Johnny Appleseed segment, right? Melody Time, that you and I have not really experienced a whole lot of the Disney religious stuff. It's not very prevalent in any of the real famous works. So I guess in the 40s he was kind of dabbling with that a little bit, because this came out right after Melody Time.
And I mean, the whole scenes with him and his grandma later on with the whole religious themes, I thought that played really well into the movie and made a lot more sense. And then the second one, Stick to Ibbity, talked about Christopher Columbus, and then Robert Bruce, who's a famous Scottish person who went into battle, I guess. I
didn't know him.
No. I thought this segment was very stylized. I thought the battle scenes with Robert Bruce, they remind me a little bit of Victory Through Air Power, how they were stylized.
Oh yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
Although I did think the Scottish spider was kind of distracting.
Okay. I could see that.
Because everything else in that segment was very realistic-ish and stylized. Then you have like this very cartoony spider with an Irishman head. It was.
I guess that's. Yeah. That's true.
And this song started with a very small live action hybrid. They kind of snuck that in to the beginning of it with the wise old owl coming out of a box that Bobby Driscoll closed, and he was on the rug, and then he started turning some pages of the scrapbook. I was like, oh, Walt still has to like sneak that in a little bit.
Every movie.
Yeah. And then County Fair, I thought that was probably the best animated sequence.
Yeah, that was really
great. And my favorite shot was the balloon sequence. You have like a bunch of silhouettes on the balloons, and they were kind of warped like the balloons. I thought that was very well done.
Yeah, that was really neat.
Yeah. And that's basically the movie, without giving out spoilers.
Did you talk about Lavender Blue, the Dilly Dilly
I did not talk about Lavender Blue. I have that.
Because that was the
actor.
Okay, yeah, because that was the Oscar-nominated song. And by the way, so Burl Ives, you mentioned him when you went over the actors. He plays the uncle. You know a bunch of his songs because he is a famous Christmas singer. He sings the famous "Have a Holly Jolly Christmas."
Okay.
He sings one of the famous versions of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and he did a lot of records. He was already famous by this point, but he did a lot of albums with Disney in like the 50s and 60s, like like compilation records and stuff. So he may be one of the Disney legends up with Whoopi. I don't know.
Yeah, I loved his singing voice, so it makes sense. And it's a weird thing to like, but I really liked his like. He just had these random songs about like kind of recapping actions that happened off screen, and then like what they were doing, like coming up, like
it's like montages almost.
Yeah, and I feel like that's kind of a lazy way to do things, but it was really fun as well.
Yeah, I mean, this movie is only 82 minutes, so they certainly could have fleshed it out, made it an hour and a half, and maybe done a couple more of those scenes. But I guess why bother if you've got the great Burl Ives singing your montage songs?
Because I feel like that's a common trope of like people be like, "Oh man, I can't believe we escaped that," and then you didn't see that. But
right,
I mean, it wasn't like that bad. It was like, oh, we cut down a tree and got some honey.
Yeah.
But I thought it was really fun. But I guess I thought he had a great singing voice, so I guess I could listen to him sing songs all day.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense.
And then acting wise, I thought Driscoll and Patton did a better job here than Song of the South. I thought they definitely stepped it up.
I thought Driscoll was really good in this movie.
Yeah, I thought Patton was really cute as well. Some of the scenes where she was in the swamp with her being like frustrated and like looking at the owl, I thought that was really good. And like these kids, I don't know how many days they spent going through that swamp, but they were real troopers there.
Yeah, they really were. I mean, it's sad because when I see scenes like that, I always think about like Judy Garland and how they used to like pill her all up to make her, do things. And I just wonder, like, I hope these kids weren't, being pushed to beyond their limits by Disney or the director or anybody. But I don't know. I didn't read that they were. Hopefully
they seemed to have smiles on their faces when they were going through that swamp. So I think they were having fun, probably.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, they certainly, especially once I read it was like 100-degree days a lot of the time. I'm sure it was not the most fun acting experience, but I mean, they were definitely troopers. And because of their other couple movies together, I mean, you really believe that these kids are brother and sister. They, have a history together.
I think they were supposed to be cousins in this movie.
Maybe they're cousins in this one.
Yeah.
Okay. But how did you feel about the emotional resonance? Because I watched this movie before Song of the South, and I know one of our issues kind of with their acting, his specifically, I think in Song of the South, was the crying and emotional scenes.
Yeah, and she had some bad crying stuff. I thought they did way better with this. Yeah,
and this was 2 years later, so maybe through that time, Walt, or an acting coach sat them down and sort of went through some scenarios or whatever. But yeah, I thought, because you saw this after Song of the South, right?
Yes, I just saw this the other day.
Okay, so yeah, for me, I did it in the reverse, and so I was shocked when they weren't all that good in Song of the South, acting wise. But yeah, when I think about how this was 2 years later, I mean, it makes sense. They're more older, but
Yeah.
I mean, Driscoll basically, I mean, he's the star of this movie.
Yeah.
Whereas Song of the South, obviously, Basket was more of the star there. But yeah, I thought they both did a really good job here.
Yeah. And then I thought Eves and Bondi also did a great job as Uncle Hiram and Granny, the grandmother. And I did think that they could have cut out the dancing scene or made it a little bit shorter.
Yeah, that was unnecessary. They could have cut it out completely. I would have been fine with that. It was okay, but
yeah,
I mean, it was well shot. It was fine, but I would have either preferred, I don't know, another Burl Ives song or something. Yeah, you're right.
And when the granny sang, she had a good singing voice too. She sang a little bit of
Yeah, her I'm not familiar with, other than, let's see. Oh, she was Jimmy Stewart's mom in a bunch of his movies, including Mr. Smith, here again, and It's a Wonderful Life. She was his mom in that. So I guess I've seen a couple things.
Yeah.
But boy, she did it for a while. She was in the Waltons in the 70s. All right, well, I never really heard of her, but yeah, she had a good voice.
Yeah. So the only other thing I wrote down was I'm not sure why they chose to change the name Midnight of the sheep to Danny.
Hey, I loved it. That was great. I thought that was great.
Your name's Dan, but I thought it was weird. I feel like Midnight would be a great name for a black sheep.
I agree. I don't know what the thought on that was.
I think it's probably was just an excuse to get the champion horse Dan Patch in the movie.
Maybe.
Because he named his sheep Danny after Dan Patch, and
that's true.
The famous champion horse Dan Patch was in this movie in the beginning, and that was Jeremiah's first dream is to own a championship racehorse, and he gives that up to then care for his black sheep.
Yeah,
but I feel like it's very short in the beginning, and they even make a nail ring out of the nail from his horseshoe, and then you don't see that nail ring anymore. I feel like it was kind of just like shoehorned in there a little bit.
Yeah, I guess, but it's also a cute name. Like, I don't know, Midnight we think of maybe as a cute name now because there's like cats named Midnight, whatever, but I don't know, maybe Walt wanted like a more cutesy name.
Maybe.
So he went with that, and because they had the Danny character, the famous guy in it, then that makes sense. But he's not a real person either, I don't think. Is he?
What, the horse, Dan Patch?
Yeah, is that really his name?
That's the horse's name.
All right. So
I think that's real.
I thought maybe they made. I didn't really look into it. I thought they made that up for the movie.
I think that was a real championship horse.
Shoot. All right. Well, now I better look it up.
Because that's all they care about. They care about the horse. They don't care about the jockey who's riding it. So
right. He might be real.
Okay. I think that was a real championship horse. I mean, why else have it there? I mean,
I
they could have come up with a better name than Dan Patch too. I mean,
first of all, Patrick is my middle name, so Danny Pat to me just really speaks volumes, I think.
And you should know all about this championship horse.
Yeah, no, he's real.
Okay.
In fact, there's an award named after him.
Oh.
Wow. The Dan Patch Award is an annual award created in 1985 by members of the United States Harness Writers Association for harness racing. Wow. We're really at Tim on this horse.
Yeah.
So I guess all right. That's why maybe that is why they named it Danny. That maybe it wasn't that it was cutesy.
I think it was really they wanted that horse in there.
Well, and I guess that makes sense if Walt is such a huge fan of My Friend Flicka, and this horse is like the hottest thing going at the time. I guess it makes sense. You know,
Yeah.
to us that seems silly, but I thought overall this was a really good movie. Like I was surprised how much I liked this movie.
Yeah, it was a cute, fun movie.
It really was, and I don't watch a lot of like. I mean, I guess it's not really a horse movie because it's not about the horse. But when I saw that first scene with the horse, I was like, I kind of thought that's maybe what it was about. Um, and I'm trying to think of all the horse movies I've ever seen. I didn't see Seabiscuit. I didn't see
Did you
Racing
see Flicka?
Stripes. No, I never saw Flicka. I never saw Black Beauty.
Okay.
So, when I saw the horse, I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to like this. And then there was a cute little lamb, and I was like, oh, okay, now I can get behind this movie. And I think if they stayed with it about the horse, I'm not sure if I would have liked it as much.
Because they remade that Flicka movie that came out probably 15 years ago, just called
Yes,
Flicka.
I've never seen any version of Flicka.
Okay.
I never saw. Was there a movie called Dreamer with the
Yeah.
little girl?
Yeah, and then there was the Horse Whisperer movie.
Yep, I've never seen any of these movies, so I don't know. But I like that they changed it to a lamb for the movie.
Okay.
Well, it was a lamb in the book, I guess, too. But I like that was where it went. Because I thought, I don't know, it made more sense watching him take care of. Sorry about that. It made more sense watching him take care of the lamb because I don't think he really could have taken care of a horse.
No.
So I think that was good. I'm curious what changes were made from the book that they had to revise the book to make it more like the movie.
They probably just had to change its name, and they probably put the whole mini plot about Dan Patch in there, and then they changed the name of the book probably.
I guess. You think that was it, though?
I mean, there's a book called So Dear to My Heart because I watched did you watch all the bonus features?
Yes, I guess. Yeah, I guess we'll talk a little bit about the bonus features. But yes, I did. I watched it like 2 weeks ago, so I don't remember specifically about the book.
Well, there's the opening to it for where Walt does the opening, and he's holding a book.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, gotcha. I thought it was on one of like the trivia cuts or something. All right. So yeah, I really enjoyed this. I mean, I can see why it was beloved for a long time. I know like Leonard Maltin does the intro to all of the Disney Treasure DVDs. So I know a lot about his like philosophy on what's good at Disney and what's not. And I know this has always been one of his favorite of the early Disney movies. And when I think back to like a lot of the ones I grew up with, because I never saw this movie as a kid. I first, right?
Yeah.
We first saw it, recently. I think about like Herbie the Love Bug and the Shaggy Dog, and they're more slapsticky or comedic live action movies. And then I feel like a lot of the ones I've seen from the maybe 50s and 60s are more either action oriented, things like This Was Family Robinson and stuff like that. This to me was just a really, really solid, cute family movie.
Yeah.
Which makes perfect sense because obviously that's what Walt did back then, pretty much exclusively. I think in the 50s, you and I are going to get into some of these more like Western-based movies and some of the more action-y type movies pretty quickly because I think like one of the first ones is
I think it's Robin Hood. Maybe is it Robin Hood?
Treasure Island is first, but there's a lot of action in that, and then Robin Hood's after that, and then we get in the mid 50s we get to more like the Davy Crockett movies and the Locomotive Chase and the Wagon movie and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, for the this really harkens back to the Disney classic, like cutesy family movies. Not that those aren't family movies that we're going to talk about, but they're definitely more action based than this is.
Yeah.
This was definitely more of I mean, I don't know. You can kind of tell that Disney really had an affection for the material. And when I read that him and Roy, grew up in a town similar to this, like that made total sense to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really enjoyed the movie. Let's talk about the DVD. Did you watch all of the bonus features on it?
I did because there's not much.
There's not many. So this was first released on VHS in 1986. They did it again twice in the 90s. And then what we watched it on is the first and only, Tim's holding it right there.
Yep. Here we go. First and only.
This is the first and only, and it's only in the Disney Movie Club. It's an exclusive, and it got put out there in 2008. So you can't buy this at, a Best Buy or a Walmart or anything. And a lot of the ones from the 50s that we're going to talk about are Disney Movie Club exclusives. Some of them may be on Disney Plus now, unlike this one. But yeah, for some reason, I don't know why, when this played on TV so much and it was, so many firsts with Disney that they decided not to release it. But what kind of
when I looked at this DVD, I was like, oh, it's not even like the Gold Classic or anything like that. And then I just started reading the back, and it says, "At last, the best of Sunday night TV is back." And I was like, did this even get released in theaters?
Yeah, it's interesting. And actually, while you sit there, I have my Disney stack behind me here. A lot of these, the ones from the 50s, have that gold around them. Like, this is The Sword and the Rose, and this is Rob Roy, and they have, that's sort of the markings of the Disney Movie Club exclusive.
Yeah, it says The Wonderful World of Disney right up top here.
Yeah, and some of these do, some of these don't, but yeah, Rob Roy does. So these are, I guess,
that phrasing just made me think that was never released in theaters, and I was like, oh, I guess we're doing like just a Wonderful World of TV right here. And I was like,
yeah, I don't know why that is, and this was released in theaters twice.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm not quite sure the theory behind that, but I guess we'll get to a lot of these that are the Disney Movie Club exclusives. By the way, as a quick aside, plug for Disney Movie Club, but it's pretty great. I mean, you go in and you get 5 DVDs for, I think, $1, and then you have to buy 3 more over the next 2 years at the regular price or whatever. So I do it every year or two. I'll rejoin, and I'll get like the latest Marvel movies or whatever, or Pixar with the free ones, and then these are usually like $15 to buy like the gold ones. So that's how I've been building the collection with that. But anyway, what I find interesting about this movie not having a lot of features is that there's some international versions that have a 25-minute behind-the-scenes featurette on their version of So Dear to My Heart, and we didn't get that at all.
Oh.
Yeah,
we got a scrapbook.
A scrapbook with 17 quote-unquote pages worth of pictures. And then we get the 2-minute intro to the Disneyland showing of the movie, which Disneyland, the TV show, not the theme park, which Tim referred to. There's like a trivia thing where you can click on different trivia bits.
It was like fun facts, and I went on there. It was only one thing. It was like,
oh no, if you went down, there's a over arrow, and you could go. There was like maybe, it wasn't that many. There was maybe 7 or 8 pages of it. So it wasn't anything that exciting. And then there's 2 shorts that seemingly have nothing to do with this movie at all.
There's a train. That's the only connection. There's a train in the movie, and there's a train in both those shorts. That's the only thing I can think of.
But listen, I feel like there's a train movie coming up that we're going to talk about. Hold on, where's my list? It's not in my DVDs. There's a movie in 1956 called The Great Locomotive Chase. To me, that's when you do your train shorts.
Maybe.
But anyway, one is The Brave Engineer, which is from 1950. I mean, they're all around the same time frame, which makes sense. But so The Brave Engineer is about Casey Jones, the famous train engineer. And then there was one from 1951, which is another Donald Duck, Chip and Dale one, and that's called Out of Scale. He's like a miniature train enthusiast, and Chip and Dale are ruining his day like always. And they, they're cute, but I'm not sure why specifically they're on this DVD, but okay. So that's it. Those were the only bonus.
I thought the Out of Scale one was a lot better than the Casey Jones Brave Engineer.
Yes, I thought so too. Yeah, I was sort of bored about The Brave Engineer. And actually,
I
Tim,
thought it started off kind of strong, but then it just went on for way too long and got super unrealistic. I mean,
it's a tall tale, basically.
it's a
So,
tall tale, but I mean, it
yeah.
was kind of went off the rails for me a little bit. Pun
Um,
intended.
I was going to say, that's a train pun, Tim.
Yes.
So I've been noticing, because we've had a couple of Chippendale shorts on these movies lately. We have this one, and then was the last one on
The Johnny Appleseed one was on
Melody?
the. I think
Yes.
that was on the Johnny Appleseed DVD.
So in looking into the Disney Treasures DVDs, there is no DVD for Chippendale cartoons. There's some Donald Duck ones, and sometimes they're on theirs. But I bought this the other day off Amazon. Chippendale exclusive cartoons. There's like 8 or 9 on here that aren't on any of the other sets. So
I was thinking, like, they're usually side characters. I feel like they don't really have that many stories on their own. Either they have Donald Duck or they have Pluto.
Yeah, which is I guess why they didn't get, because the Disney Treasures are like full of shorts. They each one has like 20, 30 shorts on them, and this I think there's 8 or 9.
Yeah. So there's probably about 8
so,
or 9 that probably don't involve any other main characters.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I haven't watched it yet, but anyway, I'm getting us wildly off topic, and I do apologize for that. So let's grade this movie overall here. So dear to my heart. I think this is a great movie. I mean, I agree that the dance scene could have been excised completely.
Yeah.
But the songs in here are great. Why aren't they talked about with, some of the great songs of Disney lore? I don't know. This movie just seems to have been swept under the rug.
Yeah.
And it's very unfortunate. I give So Dear to My Heart an A-.
I probably would give it a B+.
Okay.
I mean, I thought it was good, but I thought the shoehorned Dan Patch in the beginning and the dance scene were a little bit, I don't know, didn't really fit in it. But I thought it was still a good movie.
Yeah. And then the DVD, I guess it's the only way to get it, especially since it's not on Disney Plus.
No.
So I guess I have to grade it accordingly for that. So I suppose I'll give it a B+. But the bonus features are definitely lacking on this.
Yeah, get that international one.
I know. I guess it probably wouldn't play in my player, but maybe I'll see if it's on YouTube or something, like some of the other shorts that we've seen, and maybe I can put it up in the description. But all right, well, that is it for that. So the next one you and I are going to talk about is 1950s Treasure Island.
Okay.
Which I'm not sure if I've ever seen. Maybe in the 80s it was. I know I saw a bunch of old ones from the Wonderful World of Disney.
All I've seen is Muppet Treasure.
That's the only Treasure Island you've ever seen?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I definitely have seen more versions of it than that. I just don't know if I've seen this particular version. But either way, we'll talk about that next time. So thank you for joining, Tim, and we'll see everybody next time. Bye.